I wasn't supposed to open it. That's the part I repeat to myself whenever I try to understand how everything started. It was just another Tuesday morning. Gray, forgettable, the kind of day that dissolves into the next without leaving a mark. I was standing in my kitchen, barefoot on cold tile, waiting for the coffee machine to finish its low, impatient hum. My phone vibrated on the counter. One vibration. One glance. Hotel confirmation. Your stay in Halcyon Hotel High was confirmed. I almost ignored it. I wasn't planning a trip. I hadn't booked anything. And yet, the subject line sat there, calm and official, as if it belonged to me. I opened it without thinking. That's when the ground disappeared. The email was clean, professional, logo at the top, reservation number, dates. A 4-star hotel I had heard of but never stayed in. And then I saw the name. My name. First and last. Perfectly spelled. I felt a strange pressure in my ears, like when an elevator drops too fast. I scrolled, convinced this was a glitch, a recycled template, some system error, but the details kept stacking up. 2 nights. 1 room, 1 king-size bed, late checkout special request noted. And then, under guest information, something shifted. There was a second name, not mine. A woman's name I had never seen before. I reread it slowly, letter by letter, hoping my eyes were wrong, hoping my brain was filling in gaps that didn't exist. But it was there, clear, intentional. I locked my phone and stared at the kitchen wall, my coffee forgotten, the machine now silent. My heartbeat had found a new rhythm. Too fast, too loud. People say intuition whispers. Mine didn't whisper. It grabbed me by the throat. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe someone with the same name. Maybe a typo. Maybe a system autofill error. But something about the email felt deliberate. Personal. I unlocked my phone again and scrolled to the bottom. Payment method. Already processed. The card number was partially hidden, but I recognized the last 4 digits immediately. They were mine. My stomach dropped so hard I had to sit down. I hadn't made that payment, which meant someone else had. Someone who had access. Someone close enough to know my full name, my email, my card. I thought of my husband. Not with suspicion at first, but reflex. Like reaching for a light switch in a dark room. We had been married for 9 years. 9 predictable, orderly years. No scandals, no shouting matches, no dramatic secrets. Or so I believed. He was already at work when the email arrived. I considered calling him. I didn't. Instead, I forwarded the email to myself, took screenshots, saved everything. And then I noticed something I hadn't seen before. The dates. They weren't random. They were for next weekend. The same weekend he had casually mentioned a last-minute work trip just 2 days earlier. At the time, I hadn't questioned it. Now, my hands were shaking. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. I told myself fear makes patterns where none exist. But deep down, a quiet certainty had already begun forming. This email wasn't a mistake. It was an invitation, an accident that had slipped through the cracks. And once you see something like that, you can't unsee it. I didn't know it yet, but that confirmation email was the first crack in a reality I thought was solid. And within days, everything I believed about my marriage, about myself, would collapse. Because what I did next wasn't what a loyal wife is supposed to do. And the moment I decided to go to that hotel myself, I crossed a line I could never walk back from. I didn't sleep that night. Actually, I didn't. I lay beside him, listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing, staring at the ceiling as if he might suddenly confess something. Every little movement he made seemed amplified. A shrug, a sigh, the soft sound of fabric against skin. I wondered how long he had managed to do this. How long he had managed to lie beside me with a secret carefully guarded inside his chest. In the dark, my mind replayed the email repeatedly. The clear font, the certainty, the way the reservation seemed so intentional, so planned. No rush, no impulse. Who plans a hotel stay like that? Someone who knows exactly what they're doing. The next morning, I watched him pour coffee as if nothing in the world had changed. He kissed my forehead before leaving, his lips warm, familiar. Too familiar. "Busy day," he said casually, picking up his keys. "As always, I nodded. I smiled. I played my part perfectly. The door closed behind him, and the silence that followed seemed heavier than the night before. That's when I opened my laptop. I told myself I was only going to check one thing, just confirm if this was real. The hotel website loaded slowly, as if testing my resolve. I typed in the reservation number from the email, my fingers hesitating on each key. Enter. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the page refreshed. Reservation found. My heart raced so fast I felt dizzy. There it was again. Every detail, exactly as in the email. The same dates, the same room, the same payment confirmation. And then I saw it. In guest names. Main guest, my name. Additional guest, her name. No typo, no technical glitch, no mistake. It was intentional enough to include both of us. I leaned back in my chair, trying to breathe. Why use my name? That question gnawed at me more than the betrayal itself. If it was an extramarital affair, and by this point, I was no longer pretending it wasn't, why associate myself with it? Unless it wasn't meant to stay hidden forever. I clicked on the reservation details, looking for anything else. Notes, preferences, requests. That's when I found the guest's comment. A single line. Please ensure privacy. This stay is very important. I closed my laptop. Privacy? Important? Those two words echoed louder than any accusation could have. I spent the day in a daze. I did laundry. I cleaned the kitchen. I answered emails on autopilot. Everything seemed distant, as if I were observing myself through a glass. In the afternoon, I realized something else. The hotel was only 40 minutes away. Close enough for a visit. Close enough to confirm what my heart already knew. Or to completely shatter it. I told myself I wouldn't do anything reckless. But that night, after he fell asleep again, I silently picked up his cell phone from the bedside table. My hands were steady this time. I knew his password. He never felt the need to hide it. There were no obvious messages, no dating apps, no suspicious names. His calendar showed the business trips scheduled in an organized, professional way. Too organized. I was about to put my phone away when I noticed an email folder I'd never seen before. Archived. Almost empty. Almost. One email was there, unread. Same hotel logo, same subject. Confirmation, future stay. But this one wasn't for me. It was sent to him, and this time, my name wasn't there. The main guest was him. The additional guest was her. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. So that was it. The email they sent me wasn't a mistake. It was a copy, a duplicate. Something went wrong in their system. Or someone made a careless mistake. And I should never have seen it. I put the phone back exactly where it was and hid under the covers, my body cold despite the heat beside me. At that moment, something inside me changed. I stopped being a woman waiting for answers, and I became a woman preparing for the truth, because if he thought I was going to confront him, cry, beg, or demand explanations, he didn't know me, and the next decision I made would change everything. I didn't cancel the reservation. I didn't confront my husband. Instead, I packed a small bag and waited for the weekend to arrive, because I wasn't going to keep imagining what was happening in that hotel room. I was going to see it with my own eyes. I searched for the Hotel Halcyon on Thursday night. Not because I planned to go yet, at least that's what I told myself, but because I needed to understand the place that had silently entered my life without permission. The website featured soft colors, ivory walls, floor-to-ceiling windows. Words like tranquility, privacy, refuge floated on the screen. Halcyon. A word that promised peace. The irony made my jaw clench. The hotel was on the outskirts of a small coastal town, far enough to feel like a retreat, close enough to return without question. It was the kind of place people went when they didn't want to be seen, or didn't want to be remembered. I clicked on the gallery. The lobby seemed calm, almost sterile. Marble floors, soft lighting, a reception area that looked more like a confessional than a counter. The rooms were elegant, intentionally neutral, no vibrant colors, no personality. Perfect for secrets. I memorized everything, the entrance, the bar, the elevator doors. By Friday morning, I knew the floor plan better than my own house. My husband left that afternoon. He packed light, without hesitation. No guilt in his movements. He gave me a goodbye kiss and said he'd call when he arrived. I watched him walk down the driveway, his suitcase rolling behind him, and for the first time since that email arrived, I felt no pain. I felt clarity. The moment his car disappeared, I went to the bedroom and grabbed a small suitcase. I packed like someone preparing for observation, not confrontation. Neutral clothes, comfortable shoes, no perfume. I wasn't going as a wife. I was going as a witness. The drive to the Halcyon Hotel felt surreal. The road snaked along the coast, the ocean appearing and disappearing between the trees. Each mile robbed me of something: denial, hope, fear, until all that remained was a sharp, concentrated calm. When the hotel finally came into view, my chest tightened. It was exactly like the photos. Too perfect. Too quiet. I parked across the street, my hands on the steering wheel longer than necessary. People casually entered and exited the entrance, oblivious to the fact that the building behind them held answers that could ruin lives, including mine. I went inside. The lobby had a faint scent of citrus and something cooler, perhaps polished stone. The air was fresh, controlled. Every sound seemed muffled, as if the hotel absorbed the noise the way it absorbed secrets. A woman at the reception smiled. "Welcome to the Halcyon." Her voice was soft, rehearsed. I returned the smile. "I have a reservation," I said, noticing the firmness in my voice. She typed for a moment. "Name?" I said. My real name. Her eyes turned to the screen. "Yes," she said. "I see." My heart leaped. She didn't question it. She didn't hesitate. She continued. "Checking in now?" I swallowed hard. "Not yet. I just needed to confirm one thing." Her smile softened even more. "Of course." I leaned a little closer, lowering my voice as if sharing a secret. "Has the additional guest arrived yet?" Her fingers paused, just for a second. Then she nodded. "Yes, she arrived early this afternoon." She. The word hit me harder than any other so far. I forced myself to breathe. "And the main guest?" She looked at the screen again. "He checked in about 20 minutes ago." 20 minutes. That meant they were together, in the same space, in the same room. Room 714. I thanked her and turned away before my face could betray me. I didn't go to the elevator. Instead, I sat in the lounge near the bar, choosing a spot with an unobstructed view of the elevators. I ordered a water I never drink and stared at the brushed metal doors as if they might open and confess. Minutes ticked by. Then the doors opened, and I saw her. She was nothing like I'd imagined. She wasn't younger, she wasn't extravagant, she wasn't obvious. She seemed normal. Brown hair loosely tied back, simple dress, no dramatic confidence. She looked like someone you'd pass on the street without noticing, which, somehow, made it all the worse. She chuckled softly at something someone beside her said, and then I saw him. My husband. Relaxed. Smiling. His hand resting casually on my lower back. Not hiding. Not worrying. Comfortable. I felt the ground disappear again. They passed me without seeing me, the conversation low, intimate, rehearsed by time. I remained seated until they left, until the elevator doors closed behind them. Only then did I realize my hands were trembling. This was real, not a suspicion, not a theory, a living truth. The elevator ride seemed endless. Each illuminated floor number above the doors was a silent countdown to something irreversible. My reflection stared back at me in the mirrored walls. Calm on the surface, eyes darker than I remembered. The doors opened on the 7th floor. The hallway was silent. A thick carpet muffled my footsteps, as if the building itself wanted what happened there to remain inaudible. Soft lights outlined the walls, warm and deceptive. Room 714 was at the end of the hall. I walked slowly, counting my breaths, until I stopped a few steps from the door. I didn't touch it. I didn't move. I just listened. At first, nothing. Just the faint hum of the hotel's ventilation system, the distant sound of another door closing somewhere far away. Then, voices. Low, close. Her voice reached me first. I didn't think you'd actually come. There was a pause. Then, his voice. I told you I would. It wasn't playful. It wasn't flirting. Serious. Too serious. I leaned a little closer, my heart pounding so hard I feared they would hear. This isn't a joke anymore, she said. If anyone finds out, they won't, he replied. I've sorted everything out. Solid everything out. The word sent a shiver down my spine. She exhaled, trembling. You said it would only be one night. I know. Silence. Then, the sound of a chair scraping lightly across the floor. I just need you to trust me, he continued. After this weekend, things will finally be sorted out. Solided out. That word didn't fit with an extramarital affair. It fit with a decision. A legal decision. A forever decision. I felt my legs weaken. This is the last time, she said firmly. After this, it's over. He didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was softer, almost tired. I know. Another pause. I never wanted it to come to this. I braced my hand against the wall for support. To what extent? The silence stretched until I thought the conversation was over. Then she said something that took my breath away. She doesn't know, does she? I gasped for air. He didn't answer immediately. That hesitation screamed louder than any confession. No, he finally said. She doesn't know. My chest burned. I expected anger, betrayal, but what I felt instead was something colder, fear, because whatever they were doing, it wasn't impulsive. It was planned. Caution. I feel guilty, she whispered. You shouldn't, he said quickly. None of this is your fault. None of it. As if this were something much bigger than them. I heard the clinking of glasses. A toast? To new beginnings, she said softly. My vision blurred. I took a step back. My foot brushed against the carpet, making a very soft sound, almost a whisper. But the voices stopped, instantly. My heart froze. Seconds passed. Then, footsteps. Slow. Approaching the door. I retreated silently down the hallway, turning the corner just as the door to room 714 opened. I didn't look back. I walked to the stairwell and didn't stop until I was 2 floors below, my back pressed against the cold concrete wall, my chest heaving. This wasn't just a fling, it was a crossroads, a decision being finalized, and somehow, I was the only one in the dark. I left the hotel unseen. That night, I didn't cry. I sat in my car, staring at the ocean, going over every word, every pause, every choice of words. And then I realized something terrifying. They weren't planning to separate. They were planning to leave me. I didn't know how yet. I didn't know when. But I knew one thing for sure. Whatever they were about to do would become irreversible by Sunday night. And I had less than 48 hours to stop it. I didn't go home. Not that night. Driving back felt impossible, like returning to a life that no longer existed. Instead, I checked into a small motel a few miles away. Anonymous, forgettable, the opposite of the halcyon. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard his voice again. After this weekend, things will finally be settled. By morning, I had made a decision. If they were planning something irreversible, I needed to understand what, and I needed information. The halcyon knew more than I did. I returned just after noon, dressed differently this time. Sunglasses, a hat, confidence rehearsed in the car mirror. I wasn't a wife anymore. I was a guest. The lobby was busier now. People checking in, rolling luggage, murmured conversations. I positioned myself at the bar, ordered coffee, and waited. That's when I noticed him. Early 30s, hotel uniform slightly wrinkled, name tag crooked. Evan. He looked tired, overworked, the kind of person who talked too much when someone finally listened. I waited until he was alone, refilling glasses behind the bar. "Excuse me," I said casually. "Can I ask you something?" He smiled automatically. "Of course." "I stayed here once," I lied smoothly. "Loved the place, but I always wondered, do guests ever request special arrangements?" He hesitated. I smiled, leaned in slightly. "I'm asking because my husband and I are considering a weekend away. Privacy is important. That did it. Evan exhaled, glancing toward the front desk. Yeah, he said quietly. More than you'd think. I nodded. Like, separate check-ins? His eyebrows lifted. Exactly like that. He laughed softly, shaking his head. Some people don't want names overlapping, different arrival times, different key cards. My pulse quickened. And does that happen this weekend? I asked lightly. He paused, just long enough. I probably shouldn't. It's okay, I interrupted gently. I'm not asking for details, just curious. He lowered his voice. There's a couple upstairs, he said. Room 714. My stomach clenched. They requested everything be handled very carefully. Different bookings, different payment confirmations. Different confirmations. One to him, one to me. So, 2 reservations? I asked. Technically, yes, Evan said, but for the same room. I forced a soft laugh. Sounds complicated. You have no idea, he replied. They've been nervous since yesterday, especially the guy. The guy? My husband? He keeps asking if anyone called, Evan continued, if there were any mistakes, if emails went out to the wrong address. My throat tightened. Mistakes? He knew. Why so nervous? I asked. Evan shrugged. Could be anything. Divorce, business, affairs. He leaned closer. But there's something else. I held my breath. They asked for a meeting room tomorrow night, he said. Private. No staff interruptions. A meeting room. Not romantic. Not intimate. Do couples do that? I asked. Evan frowned. Not usually. What for? He hesitated again. Legal stuff sometimes. I've seen lawyers come in. Documents. Witnesses. The word lawyers echoed in my head. I thanked him and left before he could say anything else. I sat in my car afterward, staring at the hotel entrance, my hands numb. This wasn't just about leaving me. This was about replacing me. Something formal. Something binding. Whatever they were planning in that meeting room, it would change my life permanently. But now, I had time, a location, and a window. And for the first time since that email arrived, I wasn't reacting. I was planning. I didn't need proof anymore. I needed access. Because tomorrow night, in that private meeting room, they were going to sign something they believed I'd never see, and they had no idea I already knew where and when it would happen. The meeting room was on the 3rd floor. I knew that because Evan had mentioned it casually, like it didn't matter. Like that room wasn't about to hold the truth that would divide my life into before and after. I arrived at the Halcyon just before sunset. This time, I didn't hide. I walked in like someone who belonged there. Shoulders straight, expression neutral, steps unhurried. Confidence is invisible armor. Most people don't question it. At the front desk, I asked for a printed copy of my reservation. The woman smiled politely and handed it to me. Room 714. Still active, still mine. I took the elevator to the 3rd floor and found the meeting room at the end of a quiet hallway. A small sign on the door read, Private Session, Do Not Disturb. My pulse slowed. That sign meant they expected discretion, not interruption. I sat in a chair across the hall, pretending to scroll through my phone. Time passed slowly, thick and heavy. Then they arrived. First, her. She walked fast, tense, clutching a folder against her chest like a shield. She didn't look like a woman in love. She looked like a woman preparing for something she wasn't fully comfortable with. A few minutes later, my husband appeared. No smile this time, no casual ease. He adjusted his jacket before knocking, then stepped inside. The door closed. I waited. 5 minutes, 10. Then I stood and approached the door quietly, pressing myself against the wall beside it, the same way I had the night before. At first, I heard nothing. Then voices, not raised, controlled, professional. A third voice joined them. Older, calm, measured, a lawyer. I need to be very clear, the man said. Once this document is signed, there is no undoing it. Document, singular. This protects everyone involved, my husband replied, including her. Her, not me. She has to understand the consequences, the lawyer continued. This isn't just financial. Financial. My vision narrowed. What about his wife? The woman asked quietly. There was a pause. She will be notified after everything is finalized, the lawyer said. That's standard. Notified, like an afterthought, like a footnote. My husband spoke again. She won't fight it, he said. She doesn't know enough to question it. I felt something snap inside my chest. Not break. Harden. The lawyer cleared his throat. Let's review the terms once more, he said. The trust transfer, the business assets, and the confidentiality clause. Trust. Business assets. This wasn't just a separation. This was a reassignment of power. And the past? The woman asked softly. The room went silent. Then the lawyer answered, the past stays buried, as long as no one talks. Buried. That word confirmed what my instincts had been screaming since room 714. This wasn't a new relationship. This was an old one that existed long before I ever entered the picture. I stepped back, my mind racing. Everything suddenly made sense. The secrecy, the caution, the urgency. They weren't just choosing each other. They were cleaning up a mess that had started years ago. And I was the loose end. I returned to my room at the motel and didn't turn on the lights. I sat in the dark and replayed every red flag I had ignored over 9 years. The unexplained absences, the money questions, the way he shut down whenever I asked about his past. This woman wasn't the other woman. She was the original. And I was the interruption. But they had made one fatal mistake. They assumed ignorance meant weakness. They assumed silence meant compliance. They assumed I wouldn't understand what was being done to me until it was too late. They were wrong. I didn't confront them. I didn't cry. Instead, I opened my laptop and searched for something I hadn't thought about in years. Because if they were trying to bury the past, I needed to dig it up first. And I knew exactly where to start. I hadn't searched his name online in years. There had never been a reason. Trust does that. It makes curiosity feel unnecessary, even disloyal. But that night, sitting in the dark with my laptop balanced on my knees, trust was no longer part of the equation. I typed his full name. Then hers. Together. The results didn't come all at once. They surfaced slowly, reluctantly, like something dragged up from deep water. Old business filings, archived news articles, legal forums. Then I saw it, a small headline from more than a decade ago, buried on the 4th page of results. Local startup dissolves amid partner dispute. I clicked. The article was short, vague, intentionally careful. It mentioned a young company, 2 co-founders, and an abrupt dissolution following internal disagreements. The names jumped off the screen. His and hers. Long before me. I scrolled. A paragraph near the bottom caught my attention. Sources indicate unresolved legal tensions remain between the former partners, though no formal litigation has been filed. Unresolved. I felt a strange calm settle over me. This wasn't random. I kept digging. Old financial records revealed something even more telling. A trust created shortly after the business dissolved. His name. Her name. And a third entity I recognized instantly. My husband's current company. My stomach tightened. That company, the one I had supported, believed in, sacrificed for, had been built on something unfinished, something hidden. I opened my email, and then I did something deliberate. I replied to the original hotel confirmation, not to cancel, not to ask questions, but to request an amendment. A small one. Please add my legal representative to the meeting scheduled for Saturday evening. Thank you. I used his name, the lawyer's name, the same one I had overheard. I didn't know if it would work, but by morning, I had an answer. Confirmed. I smiled for the first time in days. They thought I was still unaware, still passive, still outside the room. Meanwhile, I reached out to someone else, someone I hadn't spoken to since before my marriage. A former colleague, a financial analyst, someone who knew how to read between numbers. I sent one message. I need you to look into something for me. Quietly. His reply came within minutes. Send everything. By Saturday afternoon, the pieces were forming a picture I couldn't ignore. The woman wasn't trying to steal my life. She was trying to reclaim hers. And my husband? He was trying to erase a mistake he thought no one would trace back to him. Except I had. They had underestimated the woman they had left at home. They assumed I would crumble quietly. But I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to walk into that meeting room with more information than all of them combined. And this time, they would be the ones losing the ground beneath their feet. By the time Saturday night arrived, I had proof. Not of infidelity, of something far more dangerous. And once the door to that meeting room closed, there would be no way out for any of us. The meeting room felt smaller than I remembered, maybe because this time I wasn't standing outside it. I walked in calmly, my heels echoing softly against the floor. The air inside was tense, thick with anticipation. Papers were already spread across the table. A leather briefcase sat open near the lawyer. They all looked up at once. Her eyes widened first, then his. The color drained from his face so quickly it almost frightened me. "What are you doing here?" he asked. I smiled politely. "My name is on the reservation," I said. "Remember?" The lawyer cleared his throat. "There seems to be some confusion." "No," I interrupted gently. "There really isn't." I took a seat at the table, across from my husband, next to the woman who had once been his partner, in business, in secrets, in something far older than betrayal. "I received a hotel confirmation by mistake," I continued, and for a moment, I felt like the ground had disappeared from under my feet. I watched them carefully. Neither denied it. Neither apologized. That told me everything. The lawyer tried again. "Mrs. This meeting concerns private matters, which involve my name, my finances, and my future," I replied evenly. "So I'll stay." Silence. Finally, she spoke. "You weren't supposed to find out like this?" I turned to her. "I wasn't supposed to find out at all," I said. "That was the plan, wasn't it?" She looked down. My husband said nothing, so I placed my folder on the table and opened it. One document at a time, the original business dissolution, the trust formation, the asset transfers. Each page landed like a quiet accusation. The lawyer stiffened. "This information is incomplete," he said carefully. "Actually," I replied, "it's very complete." I slid the final page forward. A financial analysis. My former colleague's work. "Your trust," I said, looking at my husband, "was never fully disclosed, which means the assets you're trying to reassign aren't legally clean." The lawyer leaned closer, reading. His expression changed. "This complicates things," he muttered. "No," I corrected. "It exposes them." Her voice trembled. "You told me this was settled." My husband finally spoke. "It was supposed to be." I leaned in. "But you built your entire life on an unresolved past," I said, "and you thought I wouldn't notice." The lawyer closed the folder. "We need to pause this meeting," he said firmly. "Immediately." I nodded. "Good idea." I stood. "One more thing," I added, my voice calm but unyielding. "Any attempt to proceed without full disclosure will result in legal action. From me." They stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. Not as a wife, not as an obstacle, but as a threat. I walked out of the room without looking back. This time the ground didn't disappear beneath my feet. It shifted beneath theirs. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong, because later that night, someone knocked on my motel door. And what they said to me changed everything. The knock came just after midnight. 3 soft taps. Controlled. Careful. Not the kind of knock that demands attention. The kind that asks for it. I froze. For a brief moment, I considered not answering. The motel room felt suddenly fragile, as if one wrong decision could shatter the fragile sense of control I had just reclaimed. The knock came again. Same rhythm. I took a breath and opened the door. It was her. No makeup. Hair loose. Eyes red, but not from crying. From exhaustion. "I didn't know where else to go," she said quietly. I stepped aside. She entered without another word and sat on the edge of the bed, clasping her hands tightly in her lap. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, she broke the silence. "He lied to both of us." I didn't react. I let her continue. "He told me you knew," she said, "that you were aware of the arrangement, that you agreed to walk away quietly once everything was settled." My jaw tightened. And you believed him? She hesitated. I wanted to. That honesty surprised me. She looked up at me then, really looked at me. You were never supposed to be the collateral damage, she said. I was. I crossed my arms. Then why meet him again? She exhaled slowly. Because the business was ours before it was his, she said. Before you, before everything. There it was, the truth beneath the betrayal. He pushed me out, she continued. Promised to make it right later. Years passed. The company grew. And when I finally demanded what was mine, her voice cracked. He panicked. I felt a strange, unsettling emotion rise in my chest. Not sympathy. Recognition. He told me the trust would protect us both, she said, that signing those documents would finally close the chapter. And leave me with nothing, I replied. She nodded. Yes. Silence stretched between us, two women on opposite sides of the same lie. What are you going to do? She asked. I considered the question carefully. I'm going to tell the truth, I said. All of it. Her eyes widened. That will destroy him. I met her gaze. He already destroyed himself. She stood. Before leaving, she paused at the door. There's something else, she said. Something he doesn't know that I know. My pulse quickened. What? She turned back. The trust wasn't his idea, she said. It was created to hide a loss, a failure, one that could resurface if anyone looks closely enough. She left without another word. I closed the door and leaned against it, my mind racing. A hidden loss, a buried failure. The past they tried to erase was deeper than I thought. And now, I had a choice. Expose everything, or use what I knew to rewrite the ending. By morning, I had made my decision. Because some truths don't just end marriages. They end legacies. By morning, the city felt different. Not because anything had changed yet, but because I knew it was about to. I didn't rush. I showered slowly, dressed carefully, not like a woman preparing for confrontation, but like someone attending the end of something inevitable. At 9:12 a.m., my phone rang. His name lit up the screen. I let it ring. At 9:14, a message followed. We need to talk. At 9:17, another. Please. I didn't respond. Instead, I sent an email, not to him, to the board, to the company's legal department, to an investigative financial journalist whose work I had quietly followed for years. Attached were documents, records, timelines, and one simple sentence. Everything you are about to read was hidden deliberately. Then I waited. The first call came before noon. Not from my husband, from his lawyer. His voice was no longer calm. We need to discuss what you've done, he said. No, I replied. You need to understand what I know. Silence. By early afternoon, the company issued an internal notice. Temporary suspension of executive authority. By evening, the article was live. The headline was careful, devastating. Unresolved trusts and undisclosed assets raise questions around prominent firm. It didn't mention my name. It didn't need to. His phone didn't stop ringing. Mine stayed silent. That night, I returned to the Halcyon one last time. Not as a guest, as closure. The lobby looked smaller now, less powerful. Just a building that had hosted secrets too long. In the elevator, I caught my reflection again. I looked free. When the doors opened, he was there, waiting. Room 714 behind him. He looked older. Took you long enough, he said quietly. I wasn't running, I replied. I was finishing. You didn't have to destroy everything, he said. I met his eyes. You destroyed it the moment you decided I didn't deserve the truth. He swallowed. What do you want? I smiled gently. Nothing from you. That was the moment he understood. The ground disappeared beneath his feet. I thought the story ended there. But the truth has momentum. And what surfaced next was something none of us were prepared for. The call started the next morning. Not from him. From people who had never known my name before. Former partners, accountants, journalists. Even a woman I didn't recognize, who left a voicemail without saying a word. Only breathing, uneven and heavy, like someone who had waited years for permission to speak. I listened to every message. Each one added weight. Each one confirmed the same truth. What I had uncovered wasn't an isolated lie. It was a pattern. The journalist called me that afternoon. "What you sent us," she said, "opened a door we didn't know existed." She explained carefully, professionally, but I could hear the tension beneath her calm tone. The trust wasn't just about hiding assets. It had been used to absorb losses from a failed overseas expansion years ago. Losses that should have been reported. Instead, they were buried. Under shell entities, under silent partners, under names that no longer existed, including hers, the woman from room 714. She hadn't just been erased emotionally, she had been erased legally. My husband had continued building on top of that lie, contracts, investments, public credibility, all resting on something unstable. One question echoed through every call I received. How long had I known? And every time I answered the same way. I found out by accident. Because that was the most devastating truth of all. None of this would have surfaced if a hotel confirmation hadn't landed in the wrong inbox. By evening, regulators were involved. Quietly. Then, not so quietly. The company's offices closed for review. Executives resigned, and his name, once careful, protected, began appearing where he couldn't control it. He tried to see me again. I refused. He sent messages ranging from rage to regret. "You ruined my life. I never meant to hurt you. We can still fix this." I didn't reply, because I finally understood something. He hadn't chosen her over me. He had chosen himself over everyone. Late that night, the woman came to see me again. This time, she didn't knock. She waited in the parking lot, standing beside my car. "They're going to come after me," she said. I nodded. "They already are." She looked smaller than before, fragile. "What do I do?" I opened my trunk and handed her a folder. "Tell the truth," I said, "before someone tells it for you." She took it with trembling hands. "You could have destroyed me," she said. I met her eyes. "I chose not to," I replied. "That's the difference between us and him." She left without another word. I went home that night. For the first time in weeks, my house felt like mine again. Empty, but honest. I slept deeply, and in the morning, I woke up to the final headline. Charges were being considered. Not yet filed, but coming. And with them, the end of everything he had tried to protect. The charges came quietly. No dramatic arrests, no flashing lights, just official letters, closed doors, careers ending in silence. By then, I was already gone. Not running, choosing. I moved out of the house we had shared for nearly a decade. I took only what was mine, clothes, books, photographs that still felt honest. I left behind the rest. He never showed up to say goodbye. I think by then, he knew better. The company dissolved slowly, like something finally allowed to collapse under its own weight. News outlets moved on. Public interest faded. But truth doesn't disappear. It settles. The woman from room 714 testified. Not out of revenge, out of relief. She sent me one final message. "Thank you for stopping him before he erased us both." I didn't reply. Some chapters don't need a response. Months passed. Life became smaller, and in that, lighter. I learned to enjoy quiet again. Mornings without dread, evenings without unanswered questions. One afternoon, while cleaning out an old email account, I found it. The original message, "Hotel confirmation, your stay is confirmed." I stared at it for a long time. That email hadn't ruined my life. It had interrupted a lie. And sometimes, that's the kindest thing that can happen. I deleted it. Then I closed my laptop and stepped outside. The ground felt solid beneath my feet. For the first time in years, it always had been. Some truths arrive by mistake, but they save you on purpose.